Welcome everyone, I'm Lizzie Brooks and this is where muscle meets mindful and seriously good yoga isn't too serious. Thank you so much for showing up. Today is a flow to get better at balance. So the theme is balance, and you may feel that you need a little work in that department. You may really like balancing poses. Whatever it is, we'll have plenty of talk about how to get better, and then also plenty of balancing opportunities of different types and styles. So let's go ahead and begin. Oh, but first, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like button for me. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's go. Downward dog. So feel the moment when your hands come to the mat. Root down gently into the fingertips. Spread the hands gently wide, shoulder distance or maybe a little wider. Tuck your toes under and let's slowly creep into a downward dog. Pedal it out. So sometimes when we have issues balancing, it's because there's tension or tightness in the body somewhere where we're actually having to kind of fight with that, and so we can't really focus on just the balancing part. So let's open it up really gently. Come into plank pose for a moment. Just feel yourself nice and sturdy here. Exhale back into downward dog. Let's send the right leg up and then do any movement. I want you to feel really free form here. Move around in that joint. Straighten and bend the leg, cross the midline, circle around. Ooh, good. Place that down. And then other side, just really freely moving, not overthinking it. Getting a nice stretch, some spaciousness in the hips, but you feel really grounded in the hands. And then downward dog, and then plank pose. Inhale, exhale back to your downward facing dog. Lower to your knees, press back child's. Knees can be together or separated, so you choose what feels best for you. If you want to stretch the groin, you might go a little wider with the knees, and you might come further down. Take an inhale, take an exhale. And then come up to your forearms like I am, still in that child's pose positioning. Bring the hands together, and you can interlace or just palms together and just set an intention. And let's set one together that we just intend to be open-minded and not hard on ourselves, that we wobble and waver and fall in and out of things all the time. So do all humans. So being really sweet with ourselves and sealing that intention with a big inhale and a sigh out. Nice. Let's come to all fours. If you want to pad the knees with a blanket or a towel, do that. Round your spine, open the shoulders, open the spine, drape the pelvis down, and then we'll reverse that. Opening through the chest, lengthening through the spine, lifting the hips. One more time, rounding here, opening that back door to the heart. And then reversing into that cow pose, lengthening here. And then go ahead and sit back on the heels or any way that feels good. Roll out the wrists a little bit here. And just take one ear to one shoulder and then the other ear towards the other shoulder. So just, if that feels okay, you can stay with that, or you can circle the head around. We just really want to, sometimes so much about balance is mental. So we want to soften through the neck and shoulders, ease out that tension, and kind of be a little more casual about things. And then from here, we're going to walk our hands back to our feet at the back of our mat. So come into your downward dog, and then just begin that walk all the way back. Bend the knees, roll all the way up to stand. You'll bloom the shoulders back, and relax the knees, relax the glutes. Inhale, reach. Exhale, you can bend the knees any amount for the fold. Let's walk forward, and we're gonna start a balance here, okay? So what I wanna teach you about this particular balance is if you take your ball joints of your feet together, and then you shift your weight just a little side to side from one hand to the other, that's gonna feel different and a little more work in your core. Then let's change it up. Widen your stance all the way to the outer edges of your mat, and now do a little side to side shift, okay? So what did you feel? Probably what you felt, and you can take a break, is that when your feet were together, it was like one point of focus and you couldn't stabilize so much left to right, but when you separated, you could. So I just want you to take that in consideration with any positions that are like this. The placement of your feet can change how balanced you feel, okay? So say you're doing something where, let's do it. Let's separate the feet to the outer edges of your mat. Good. Now, organize that whole diamond shape towards your spine, which is from the pubic bone to the sternum to the low ribs. Draw that back and just lift your left hand and touch your heart center. And then put that down. Then lift your right hand and touch your heart center and put that down. Okay, now take the ball joints of your feet to touching and let's see what happens. Left hand touches heart center, down. Right hand touches heart center, and down. And then everything down, child's pose. So you probably noticed that you didn't teeter-totter as much left and right because you had those kickstand feet out to the sides on the first one. The second one was harder and harder on the core. Sometimes putting the feet together makes it harder on the core, and that's what you want. You want more core strengthening, poses, and that might be it. Let's continue. Downward facing dog. Deep breath in, big sigh out. Good. This time walk your hands to your feet. Front of your mat. Inhale, rise halfway up. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees, roll up, restack into your beautiful alignment. Shoulders bloom out. Okay, so we're just gonna bring that into play here. Take the ball joints of your feet to touching, bring your hands to your heart, find mountain pose. And just see if you can close your eyes. If not, don't worry about closing your eyes. Just see how your balance is there. Soften the knees a little bit. Now, separate your feet a little bit wider than your hips, and then find your balance there. Maybe close the eyes. So this is all just to find where, when you come to the front of your mat, your feet might be spaced in order for you to feel more balanced. If going wider with your feet makes you feel more grounded and balanced, there you go. You can use that. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold. Ardha Uttanasana, rise halfway up. Exhale, fold. Step back into a plank pose, and we'll take this through a vinyasa of your choosing or go directly to downward dog or child's. Heels rock forward. Chaturanga, you might come all the way to the ground here. Cobra or upward facing dog. And then downward dog. Breathing smoothly here. Soften the neck. This is an opportunity for the contents of the heart to come on down and hang out in the mind. And then we'll add a little bit different balance. Coming into your plank pose, put your right hand underneath you, stagger your feet, put your left leg forward and your right leg back, and the toes aren't touching the heels. So that back heel the front heel's not touching the toes. And then reach up. Okay, so this is a great position for people who find balance is really difficult here. If you want, you can stack the feet, but if you want more balance, engage at the ankles and make an L shape here so that you have more of an L to balance on and you're not kind of here. That's going to be harder to balance on. More of a L than a straight line. Inhale. Exhale, we'll all come back to our classic plank pose, then downward dog for our breath. Vinyasa or no vinyasa. You take your time and you find the path that's working best for you today. Now stay exactly where you are, and I'm going to switch sides so you can see me from another angle when we go into the second side. From here, come into plank. Left hand underneath the left shoulder, so you walk it in a little bit, and then choose, are you taking yourself into a staggered foot position, left leg forward, right leg back, or are you stacked, engaging at the ankles? Will very much help with the balance here, okay? Breathing. And then slowly trust yourself. You can walk that foot over and then transition. That might help your plank. And then downward dog, Big breath in and out. Vinyasa or not, in the way that works for you today. If you find that your side planks are always really wobbly and they bother your wrist too much, then you're going to choose a forearm side plank. Walk your hands back to your feet. Inhale, rise halfway up, and exhale, fold. Now, inhale, come all the way to stand, however feels best for you, and bring your hands to your heart. If you always do a forearm side plank just because you're avoiding doing a hands down side plank because you're not good at it, that's not a reason to use it all the time. It is good to use it to get used to other feelings of like the legs, what the core is supposed to do, what the shoulder is supposed to do a little bit, and not just rush right into being on a longer distance from the floor, okay? So you're now at the back of your mat, and we're just gonna work one of my favorite balance moves, which is totally weird. Surprise. So take your left heel and put it right in line with the back of your mat, and then take your right heel and put that right in line with your second toe. So it's like you're on a tightrope, and then bring your hands to your heart. And you might not be able to see it here, but I am wobbling and wavering here as my brain isn't used to standing this way. My body is not used to standing this way, so my brain's trying to find me in space and then calibrate how to hold me, okay? So that might be happening with you. Breathe. You're not on an actual tightrope. And then from here, we're just gonna switch. The foot that's in back is gonna go in front, okay? So just give yourself some time. We're not doing anything crazy with the arms right now. Oh, but if you do want to reach out or touch a wall or something like that, absolutely. Reaching out to help you stabilize, right? Or reaching to the side and finding a wall or a chair, always okay. Always okay as we're getting better at balance. And then we're just going to continue that walk slower than slow, like molasses, all the way. Now, something with balance is that looking down at the floor can make it easier, or a couple feet in front of you. If you're looking way across, or definitely if you're looking up, separate your feet, come into your mountain pose. If you're looking up, balance is like, that's a little more advanced. We'll wait on that. Inhale, reach. Exhale, fold. Rise halfway up with the inhale. And exhale, take it back into a downward facing dog. And then from here, let's lift the left leg up. Let's step the other leg up. And then reach it into your warrior two setup. So from the floor, we're gonna set this up. Left heel is roughly gonna align with our back arch as we roll the right heel down. Very careful rising up, taking the right arm up and over and creating our warrior two. So it might not seem like it, but this is a bit of a balance posture. You're on that straight line. It's a little bit harder to balance the whole time, you know, right? So if there was a stiff breeze, we'd have to hold on a little bit. So instead of collapsing into soft tissue, build yourself up, plug the femur heads into the pelvis a little bit more. Really find from your big toe ball joint, pinky toe ball joint, and middle of your heel on both feet that you're very actively rooted, and then find some buoyancy in the heart and soften through the arms. Breathing here. And then option for peaceful warrior. Now careful, if balance is really tricky and you take the gaze up and that doesn't feel good, we'll just hold in warrior two. Back arm down, left palm reaches up. Maybe it's a nice straight line here, or maybe arc back any amount. You could look forward, you could look down to the back heel. Make sure whatever focal point you're using helps your balance. And back to warrior two. Straighten it all up, turn your toes this way, reach up, bring your hands to your heart. Deep breath in and sigh it out, shake it out. Inhale, reach up, exhale, fold. Just giving ourselves a nice lengthening for the spine and the hamstrings. If we're too tight in the hips or hamstrings, balance can be a little hard. Also if we're way too loose, but that's another story. All right. Soften a little side to side, maybe bend the knees. Hands can stay underneath you for balance or not. And then from here, we're going to transition to the other side of the mat. So turning whichever set of toes for you, turns towards your short end of the mat and finding a lunge. And then step forward, inhale, rise halfway up, exhale, fold. Choose how you want to rise. We'll come all the way up, reach, 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 and exhale, hands to the heart. Now, do you want to place that wider stance so you feel a little more balanced? Give it a shot. Just breathing. Inhale, reach. Exhale for the fold. Rise halfway up. Exhale, take it back into plank, and remember your feet can be the distance apart that feels right for you. Now from here, we're going to go directly to downward dog, so no vinyasa there. This time we'll allow the right leg to come up, draw it through, and seal ourselves down, setting up for warrior two. So circling the back heel down, bend the front knee, and open the left arm back for our warrior two. Breathing here. So I wanted to come into this posture that's normally not seen as a balance posture to really talk about the root of the big toe ball joint, pinky toe ball joint, and middle of the heel on both feet. Sometimes we're so focused on that front foot, we don't get it in the back foot, and our knee drops down a little bit. So if we can roll the knee in the same direction as the toes, and then from here, maybe take our peaceful warrior. Again, if looking forward is better than up, or if looking back to the back foot is better, that's the focal point you use to help you with your balance. And back to our warrior two positioning. We'll reach everything up, spin the toes this way, inhale, exhale, fold down, swish and sway a little bit side to side. And then place your hands or your fingertips underneath you and lift your heels high up, draw your core musculature way back, and we'll hop into center with very bent knees. So lift up, do a little lift and lower as you bend the knees and straighten, bend the knees and straighten, bend the knees and straighten, and then hop to the center. Don't worry if that didn't look cool or it landed with a thud. And then option for balance here. So this is a squat pose, and you can stay right here with the fingertips down. If you want to get the torso a little higher and you want to play with the balance higher up, but you don't want to leave some of the fingers off the floor, take your block at your highest height or something else, and then you can still have a finger or two on your block, and instead of having to be here, right, to go, okay, well, I still have the floor there and I'm not going to topple, highest height of the block, and then you can lift the torso up. Breathing here. Maybe play with bringing your hands to your heart. And then if that starts to get too wobbly, just boop, press the easy button, right? I'm not sponsored by anybody. All right, breathe here. If that's working, lift the arms. If that's working, bring the hands together. And then fingertips, maybe find the block first, maybe the floor, and then we'll go into a fold here. From here, you're going to choose how you want to rise, and I want you to move that block out of the way for now, and we'll come all the way up. Okay, so a balance pose that we see a lot of times in flow yoga is tree pose. So tree pose, okay. There are some little tricks with tree pose that can be really, really helpful. So one of them is spreading the toes out a little bit, and then just lifting the heel of the knee that's going to come up, lift that heel of that leg, and just let your body feel what it's like to just put more weight over on one side first, to send some roots down. Okay, it's so much about the setup and preparing the brain. And then put a little softness in that standing leg knee. So if I keep my knee a little more relaxed, if there is a stiff breeze or someone knocks me, hopefully they don't do it out of any mean spirits, but then I can kind of waver and catch my balance again. Instead of if I was stiff and someone knocked me, I'm probably gonna go, okay? So lift the heel of the opposite foot, the knee that's gonna bend and lift. Soften the standing leg, spread the toes out, and as you're ready, slow rise up. Slow is also key in balance. And then we'll externally rotate and then place anywhere on the leg that feels good. Yes, even the knee is fine. If you're not pressing as hard as you can into it, do you feel like you're doing your knee any damage? You're not, okay? So if you're on the knee, Don't press as hard as if you're somewhere else on the leg. But if you're somewhere else on the leg, yes, press the leg into the foot and the foot into the leg decently, not like they're angry at each other, but just that there's that connection and magnetism. Then bring your hands to your heart. If reaching up is something that can happen, you can reach it. If you want a little bit more, hands together. Breathing here. If you really want to test your balance, you're going to take all of this and arc over towards the bent knee. If you did that, come all the way up. Draw the knee forward and let the arms and the foot float down, and then march it out. You'll probably feel that standing leg got a lot of work there in the glutes and hamstrings. All right, so let's set that balance up on the other side. Spread the toes. Lift your opposite heel. Soften, put some buoyancy, anchor it down. As you feel ready, and again, your focal point might be a couple feet in front of you or right across the room. You don't even have to watch me on this because you know where we're going. Bring the knee up. Externally rotate. Use the other hand to kind of help position your leg where you want it to go. And if you're really finding balance a trouble, then put a little kickstand here, and here's your tree pose. Okay? Or use a wall or a chair. And then draw to midline. Choose the arm position that works for you. A little note on this. If you're choosing a chair or a wall, I don't want it to be a crutch forever. It's just there. Come off of it sometimes. Test that, but don't be on it all the time unless you have inner ear issues or vertigo or something like that. That's a little different. If you want to arc over, if you really want to play with that balance, then arc it over. And if you did that, come all the way back up. Bring the hands down, bring the foot down, and shake it out. Ball joints of your feet to touching. Bring your hands to your heart. We're going to really work the balance in a slow, steady build. You can stop at any time. I want you to imperceptibly almost lift your heels like someone wants to slide a piece of construction paper under your heels. They're dying to put a piece of construction paper under your heels. All right, good. And now from here, they want to put a skinny book under your heels. And maybe a longer book. And maybe an encyclopedia. Am I dating myself? You're like, someone wants to put an iPhone under my heels. No, like Encyclopedia Britannica, remember? Now the thing with this is if you find your ankles going to the sides a lot, you probably need to work on integrating drawing towards the midline a little bit more. So waking up through the whole inner seam of the legs, and then if you want a little more, reach up. If you want a little more, hands together. Breathing here. Lovely strengthening for the arches, the calves, hamstrings, everything. And then exhale, slowly come down, and let's shake that out. Roll the ankles around a little bit here if that feels okay. And then step one heel forward, bend the back knee, hands on that back thigh, and spread your toes on that one extended leg. Breathe. Ooh, good to open the hamstrings and calves and Achilles tendon after that balance. And then other side. Get real sassy with it. Hey, yeah. So bend your back knee, hands there, and spread your toes. Really send your hips back to help increase that stretch. Flow your breathing there. A lot of balance is just about adding balance in our lives, like stretching out after we strengthen. And then shake it out. If we feel unbalanced in our lives, it's harder to feel balance on the mat. So look at any place you can add balance, add some balance. Okay. So let's come to the top of the mat, and just want to show you a little trick for our standing splits, which can also be used in Warrior 3, getting in and out of that. So it's a blooming from center type of thing, and I wrote an article in Yoga International about this. I think it's 4 ways to become more graceful in yoga or something like that. Check it out. You can always use a block. It's going to be a lot harder for people to balance if they're doing a pose like warrior, like half moon or warrior three or standing splits if the block is right in front of them. If it's right in front of them, too close to the foot, or right in front of them even further out. If you can take it to the side and make more of a diagonal kickstand, like we talked about separating the feet in that plank pose, it's more of a kickstand to lean into rather than being on a tightrope. Okay, so please keep that in mind. If you want to use a block, you can. Same principle goes for if you don't use the block and the fingertips are just in front or to the side. To the side is going to be easier. And then from here, let's go ahead and place that block in front of us. It's handy if we want. Soften the knees. Send those roots and find the connection into the feet. Then from here, we're going to go ahead and take the block underneath and right in front for our warrior three before we go, warrior three or standing splits, before we turn it into an Ardha Chandrasana, a half moon, where we'll want to take it more out to this side. So if I step into it, this is what I see a lot, and you can watch this. I see the block too close to the foot, right in front of the foot, and then the person says, okay, warrior three. And they kind of swing the leg up, both legs are straight, and they're here, and they feel like they're not stretched out enough and don't feel balanced. So, a couple of things. One is you can take your blocks more diagonal from you. So on this one, you can use two, but more diagonal rather than right underneath, a little more diagonal. You can also bloom from the center. And what I mean by that is bend everything in, okay? Get your focal point down on the floor there, and then as you're ready, harness all of that energy together and bloom into the warrior three or bloom into the standing splits. And I'm really tight today, so this isn't much of a split, but it is what it is. All right, so you're drawing from the midline out rather than just going boop and trying to kick something up. The momentum of the kick often throws people off balance anyway. So choose which one. The right foot is forward. Choose if you're in a standing split or a warrior three legs are more straight out. Bend everything in. Root your fingertips down onto the floor or blocks. And then make sure they're catty corner a little bit. And then from here, bloom into your posture. I'm gonna go ahead and go for that more warrior three. Square the hips a little bit off here and breathe. If you're feeling okay and you want a little bit more work in the balance, don't keep that locked out lower knee, just like we talked about in tree pose. Put a little micro bend in it and bring your hands to your heart. Then you'll feel yourself wobbling and wavering because that's normal. Breathe here, especially right now for me because I have really tight hamstrings from working out. And then let's just close everything back down into a gentle fold. Inhale, rise halfway up. Exhale, fold. We'll do the other side and then we'll go into our half moon poses. So stay where you are. I'm just going to come to this angle. I'm going to take the blocks not straight in front of the feet, but a little out to the sides. I'm going to choose my other leg position. Left leg is underneath me. Right leg comes back a little bit. Instead of just straightening into it, I'm going to hug everything in, round, round, round. Trust that I can balance, find my focal point, and then bloom into the posture. So you can go into that warrior three. You can go into your standing splits. And just like we did on the other side, come back in a little bit and bloom into whichever one you're choosing. And then play there or take your hands off of your blocks, out to the sides or maybe touching a wall or even behind you, whichever works for you today. And then let's just go ahead and round everything in, soft fold, and then roll it all the way up to standing and roll the shoulders back and down a few times. So we'll just go over the Ardha Chandrasana, half moons, and then we'll calm it down and come to Shavasana. So from here, the main thing I want you to remember, and I'm going to show you on my mat so you can kind of see, if I am in a an Ardha Chandrasana with my block either too close in, that's making me curl a little bit more forward without a long spine, or just straight out where I have a longer spine but it's in front of my foot. That's more of a tightrope. If I take the block more catty corner, then I can lean into it a little bit to roll the hip out and breathe here. Doesn't mean that it's wrong to take the block more forward. It just means balance will be more difficult, okay? So choose, are you using a block or maybe just the fingertips down? We're gonna come into a warrior two. You get to choose whichever foot you wanna do first and have your block handy, catty corner to the pinky toe side of that front foot if you're using a block. Hands to the waist, hop the back foot in a little bit. And we're gonna bloom a little bit more from center. So again, instead of just flinging ourselves into this, we're gonna draw a little closer to the floor, a little softer, more bent in that standing leg, a little closer to the floor. And then as you're ready, you might even take your block out further after you create the pose or during it and coming on up. Breathing here, remember that block is kickstand or fingertips are down. And then you're not straight and so hard in that lower knee, but put a little softness there and breathe. Gaze down at the floor if balance is a little tricky. You don't even have to lift that top arm. And then we'll land back in our warrior two. Grab the block if you're taking it to the other side, and we'll just transition there. Block goes diagonally and over to the side of the other pinky toe, finding that warrior two. Hop that back foot in. You can put that back hand on the waist if you want to begin. Find that block and you might step it forward and to the side a little more before you kind of have hunkered down and bloomed into Ardha Chandrasana. And now you might keep your gaze at the floor because, hey, that's helping your balance, or that's the last thing that changes and maybe that top arm lifts. But again, why turn the gaze up if the whole posture is gonna crumble, okay? Get everything set in the posture, let the gaze be the last thing if it happens. And then very carefully look down at the floor. If you haven't, you can leave your block behind, land, and reach out, and shake it on out. And then walk the feet together into your mountain pose. Again, does it feel better to have wider feet? So we didn't do a heck of a lot of all of these crazy arm balances today, but rather more standing balances and then that little squat, just to teach you some things to think of as far as kickstanding the feet, kickstanding the hands, and making sure you're not on that tightrope, where your gaze is, how you're breathing, and also where you're rooting what's on the ground, okay? So I hope that those will be useful in all of your balancing poses. Let's come on down to a seated position. And if you want to put a blanket under your hips, you can. And let's just soften through the neck again, the jaw, maybe look a little side to side, rolling the shoulders around. And if there is any propping you do like to use for your Shavasana, you can get it now. We're just gonna do a little bit of some soft stuff to stretch us out, make us a little bit, just make us feel better before we come down to the floor. So check out this weird one. Take your fingertips and turn them towards your hips, but walk them back and to the sides. All right. Now take the head of the arm bone. This is gonna be really weird. If it's weird, you're doing it right. And you're gonna round that forward while you take your low back, middle back, and round it to the floor behind you. Ooh. And then from here, you can even scoot your hips closer to your heels to increase the stretch at the head of the shoulders here. If you're here, it'll be different. Round the spine towards the floor. And then take baby twists where the left shoulder points towards the right knee, and then release and the right shoulder points towards the left knee. I did a lot of working out with weights and I needed this one. And then open it up. Breathe in and breathe out. And then very carefully coming on down to the floor and hug the knees in, rock a little side to side. And just feel how nice it is to not have to attempt any more balance because you're on the ground and the ground's holding you up. Soles of the feet to the floor. Breathing here. Separate your feet wider than your knees, and then just rock your knees side to side. So this will be different degrees of rotation depending on your hips and your spine. Don't worry about it. Just as long as it feels good, don't force. And then from here, bring your feet forward. Reach your arms behind you. Grab one wrist and stretch, stretch, stretch. And then the other side, reaching and grabbing the other wrist. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Inhale. Exhale, release. Take your elbows into a cactus position. If you need to bend your knees for this, do that. If not, keep your legs on the floor and let your feet just open out to the sides like a book. So no holding on in the pelvis. So from the pit of the pelvis, let go. Because sometimes when we're working on balance, we think we still have to hold on to the core or in the legs or brace somehow. Don't brace at all. This is to be the opposite of that. Just soften. Relax the face and the jaw. Let the whole belly move on your breath. And recognize that this releasing and relaxing at the end of your practice is the balance to the more difficult parts of the practice. So it is key. I used to not believe that, 25 years ago. But after I had been teaching for 20 years, I sure believe it. Inhale and exhale. And stay as long as you can. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that you got some tips and tricks for balance. I'm sure this won't be the last video I make on this because there's so much information, but thanks for coming, and please do hit the subscribe button, hit like, leave me a comment.